Queen Hatshepsut was often described as a volcano of ideas, a woman whose mind burned with creativity and ambition. For centuries, her story was buried beneath sand and mystery. But modern science has slowly begun to uncover the truth about her life, her reign, and even her body. When scientists finally managed to extract DNA from what was believed to be her long-lost mummy, they expected it to confirm her royal bloodline and fill in missing pieces of Egyptian history. Instead, what they found shocked the entire archaeological world. Hidden in her DNA were secrets that not only revealed more about who she truly was, but also raised questions about her health, her mysterious death, and the strange events that followed her rule. The story of Hatshepsut has always been extraordinary. She was one of the few women in history to rule Egypt as pharaoh, but the discoveries about her mummy took that story in directions no one could have predicted. Long before Cleopatra became famous for her charm and power, another woman had already broken through Egypt's traditions and taken the throne for herself. Hatshepsut was not an ordinary woman who stumbled into greatness. She was born into Egypt's most powerful royal family around 1507 BCE. The daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I and his chief wife, Amos. Her childhood was surrounded by luxury, divine ceremony, and education. Unlike most girls of her time, she was trained in leadership, religion, and statecraft. She learned how to manage temples, direct trade, and handle court politics. No one could have guessed that this young princess would one day claim the throne of Egypt and call herself the living embodiment of a god. After her father's death, she married her half-brother, Thutmose II, which was common in royal families to keep the divine bloodline pure. Their marriage was politically important, but personally distant. They had only one daughter, Nephyor, while Thutmose II had a son, Thutmose III, with another wife named Iset. When Thutmose II died young, Egypt was thrown into uncertainty. His son, the rightful heir, was still a child. Following custom, someone had to rule in his place until he grew up. That responsibility fell to Hatshepsut, both his stepmother and aunt. At first, she acted as a regent, running the kingdom in the boy's name while maintaining the traditional image of a supportive female guardian. But over time, things began to change. Her influence grew stronger, her decisions more independent, and her role began to resemble that of a true ruler rather than a temporary caretaker, with the support of Egypt's most powerful priests, especially those of the god Amen and her closest advisors. Hatshepsut took a bold and unprecedented step. She declared herself pharaoh. In ancient Egypt, this was almost unthinkable. The position of pharaoh was considered sacred and inherently male, representing the gods on earth. Yet Hatshepsut used her intelligence to reshape tradition in her favor. She ordered inscriptions that described her as the daughter of the god Ammon himself, conceived by divine intervention. She wore the traditional clothing of male kings, including the royal kilt, headdress, and even the false beard. She referred to herself as His Majesty in temple carvings, not to hide that she was a woman, but to assert that her right to rule came from divine will, not gender. Her reign, which lasted about 22 years, became one of the most peaceful and prosperous in Egypt's history. Instead of focusing on wars, she concentrated on rebuilding Egypt's economy, trade routes, and temples. Under her leadership, art and architecture flourished. She ordered the construction of magnificent temples, obelisks, and statues across the land. The most impressive of all was her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, near Luxor, built in grand terraces that rose against the cliffs. It was a symbol of harmony between the human world and the divine. The walls were covered with scenes showing her divine birth, her coronation, and her many achievements. Even today, Deir el-Bahari stands as one of the most breathtaking sights of ancient Egypt, a lasting reminder of her brilliance and vision. Beyond architecture, Hatshepsut also revived Egypt's foreign trade and diplomatic relations. She sent a famous expedition to the mysterious land of Punt, believed to be near modern-day Somalia or Eritrea. Reliefs from her temple depict the journey vividly: large ships sailing with cargoes of gold, ivory, incense, exotic woods, animals, and myrrh trees that were later planted in Egypt's temples. This expedition greatly enriched the kingdom and strengthened Egypt's reputation as a powerful, prosperous empire. During her reign, Egypt was stable, its people were well fed, and the temples of Karnak and other cities expanded beautifully. Hatshepsut's rule proved that leadership was not determined by gender, but by wisdom, strategy, and courage. However, her legacy did not remain untouched. After her death, her stepson, Thutmose III, finally ruled alone. Over time, he ordered that her statues be destroyed, her name erased from temple walls, and her images removed from official records. For centuries, Hatshepsut was almost forgotten. Historians still argue about his reasons. Some think he wanted revenge. Others believe it was an effort to restore the traditional male image of the pharaoh, or perhaps to prevent future female rulers from claiming the throne. Whatever the reason, his attempt to erase her failed in the long run, because centuries later, archaeologists rediscovered her story and began piecing together the life of this remarkable woman. One major mystery remained, though: her missing mummy. Despite all the monuments and inscriptions celebrating her reign, her body had never been found. Other New Kingdom pharaohs had their mummies discovered in grand tombs, but Hatshepsut's was missing. Without her mummy, no one could confirm how she died, what illnesses she might have had, or what her final years were like. The mystery began to unfold in 1903, when British archaeologist Howard Carter, who would later discover the tomb of Tutankhamun, a small, unimpressive tomb in the Valley of the Kings. Labeled KV60, inside were two female mummies. One was identified as Hatshepsut's royal nurse Sitarin, while the other had no markings, no coffin inscriptions, and lay unceremoniously on the floor. Carter had no reason to believe it was important, so he recorded it and sealed the tomb. For decades, the unknown mummy remained forgotten, while scholars searched other tombs for the lost queen. Another site, KV20, believed to be Hatshepsut's official tomb, contained sarcophagi with her name and her father's, but both were empty. It was as if she had vanished completely. Some believed her mummy had been destroyed by Thutmose III. Others thought priests may have secretly moved it to protect it, or that tomb robbers had stolen it long ago. The mystery persisted for more than a century. Then, in 2007, Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's chief of antiquities, launched a new investigation. This time, scientists used modern technologies: CT scans, DNA analysis, and digital imaging to examine the mummies from KV60 again. One was confirmed as the nurse Sitarin, but the second remained unidentified. The breakthrough came when researchers discovered a small wooden box in the Cairo Museum inscribed with Hatshepsut's royal cartouche or name. Inside was a single tooth, carefully preserved for thousands of years. When scientists compared the tooth to the CT scans of the unidentified mummy's jaw, it fit perfectly. The tooth matched the gap in her upper jaw exactly. This was definitive proof that the unmarked mummy was indeed Hatshep. It was a stunning discovery. After more than 3,400 years, the body of Egypt's most powerful woman had finally been found, not in a grand royal tomb, but in a modest chamber beside the woman who had nursed her as a child. It was a strangely poetic ending. The nurse who had once cared for her in life now lay forever at her side in death. This rediscovery changed everything historians thought they knew about Hatshepsut. Science had succeeded where history had failed, restoring her identity and her story to the world once more. Yet, even with her mummy found, new questions arose. What had caused her death? Why was her body hidden away? And what secrets did her DNA hold? To find out, scientists began a deeper investigation. A team led by Dr. Angelique Corthels, a forensic anthropologist, and Dr. Yahia Gad, a geneticist from Egypt's National Research Center, conducted advanced DNA testing. It was a delicate process, as ancient remains are easily contaminated. They compared genetic samples from Hatshepsut's mummy with those of her family members, including Thutmose I and other royal mummies. The results confirmed the biological connections, proving beyond doubt that the mummy was indeed Hatshepsut. But the DNA also revealed troubling signs about her health. The analysis suggested that Hatshepsut suffered from obesity, diabetes, and possibly cancer. Chemical residues found in a small vial, discovered among her belongings, contained a thick brown substance, likely a type of lotion or perfume she used regularly. When scientists analyzed it, they found carcinogenic compounds, meaning the lotion might have slowly poisoned her over time. If true, this would explain her premature death and physical decline in her final years. What had long been seen as a peaceful passing might have been caused by her own beauty treatments. It was a heartbreaking possibility that the queen who brought prosperity and peace to Egypt may have been unintentionally killed by her own cosmetics. This discovery added a haunting layer to her story. For centuries, she had been portrayed as powerful, divine, and untouchable. Yet science revealed her as deeply human, a woman who aged, suffered, and perhaps died from the very luxuries of her royal life. The DNA evidence not only solved one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, but also gave her a voice again after thousands of years of silence. Her story is one of brilliance and courage, but also tragedy and loss, from the sands of Luxor to the labs of Cairo. Queen Hatshepsut's life continues to captivate the world. She was a ruler who built a golden age, a woman who ruled as a god, and a forgotten mummy rediscovered by science. The woman who once defied history has now been restored to it, her spirit still echoing through the temple she built and the legacy she left behind. Her life reminds us that power and genius can transcend centuries. And even when erased from stone, truth will always find a way to rise again from the dust. Asterisk. Both scientists belonged to a new generation of researchers who believed that DNA could reveal truths about the past that archaeology alone could never uncover. Their mission was to extract and analyze the DNA from the unidentified mummy found in the KV60 tomb, and finally determine whether she was truly Queen Hatshepsut. It was a massive challenge because the process of mummification, designed to preserve the body forever, ironically made it incredibly difficult to recover DNA. The ancient embalmers had used powerful resins, salts and oils that hardened tissues but also destroyed much of the genetic material. Over thousands of years, heat, humidity, and microbes further damaged what little DNA might have survived. Extracting DNA from such remains was like trying to read a book that had been burned, soaked in tar, and torn to pieces. Every step of the process had to be done in a sterile lab because even a single modern fingerprint could ruin the results. Small samples of bone and tissue were taken carefully and studied in different laboratories to prevent any contamination. The scientists used a process called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, which can amplify even tiny fragments of DNA so they can be studied. They knew that nuclear DNA, which carries a full genetic code, was probably too damaged to use. Instead, they focused on mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down through mothers and is much more durable. If the mummy was truly Hatshepsut, her mitochondrial DNA would show clear similarities with the DNA of other mummies from her royal bloodline. The researchers compared the samples with those from other members of her family, including her grandmother, Ahmose Nefertari, and her father, Thutmose I. It took months of careful work, testing and cross-checking to confirm results. Each DNA fragment was compared and verified multiple times to ensure accuracy. Finally, after endless testing, the results came in and they changed everything. The mitochondrial DNA of the mysterious KV-60 mummy matched that of the royal family. This was scientific proof that the mummy was indeed Queen Hatshepsut. The researchers were amazed. One of them said it felt as if the queen herself had spoken to them from across time. Her DNA had preserved her voice when everything else about her had been erased. CT scans offered even more insight. They revealed a woman who was in her late 40s or early 50s. The same age historians believed Hatshepsut had been when she died. Her skeleton showed the posture of a person used to sitting on a throne. The care taken in embalming her organs confirmed her royal status. But the final proof came from a simple discovery that left no doubt. In a small wooden box bearing Hatshepsut's royal seal, scientists had found a single tooth years earlier. When they compared the CT scan of the mummy's mouth with the tooth, they discovered that it fit perfectly into the missing gap in her upper jaw. The alignment was so precise that even modern forensics couldn't deny it. This was Queen Hatshep. It was a historic breakthrough. For the first time, DNA analysis had confirmed the identity of an ancient Egyptian ruler. This wasn't just an archaeological victory, but a triumph of science itself. Through the power of genetics, the long-lost queen who had been erased from history for over 3,000 years was given her identity back. Her DNA had done what her statues and temples could not. It made her immortal again. But as scientists studied her remains further, they uncovered an even more shocking discovery about her final days. For centuries, people had wondered how Hatshepsut's reign had ended. Some believed she was betrayed or murdered, while others thought her stepson Thutmose III had overthrown her. But science revealed a far more tragic truth. Her death wasn't caused by violence or conspiracy, but by something far quieter and crueler, a disease likely caused by her own habits. CT scans of her mummy showed clear signs of metastatic bone cancer that had spread across her pelvis, spine, and legs. It was a condition that would have caused her unbearable pain near the end of her life. The scans also revealed signs of obesity and what looked like complications from type 2 diabetes. Historians were puzzled at first. How could an Egyptian queen, whose diet mostly consisted of grains, fruits, and fish, develop such health problems? The answer came from one of the personal items buried with her. Inside that same wooden box that held the tooth was a small alabaster vial. For years, people thought it was just a container for perfume or lotion. But chemical testing revealed it contained benzopyrene, a toxic compound known today to cause cancer. In ancient Egypt, substances containing tar and resin were often used in skin creams and ointments to treat irritation or to make the skin smooth and fragrant. Hatshepsut, who cared deeply about ritual purity and personal appearance, may have used the balm often, believing it would help her. But tragically, it might have slowly poisoned her over time. The very products she used for health and beauty could have been what led to her death. Asterisk. Dr. Yahia Gad, one of the scientists studying her remains, explained that Hatshepsut's genetic profile showed she had a natural tendency toward metabolic problems like obesity and diabetes. That meant her body was already vulnerable to the effects of harmful chemicals. The combination of her genetics and the daily use of the toxic lotion likely triggered the cancer that ended her life. It was a cruel twist of fate, a perfect storm of bad luck, genetics. An ancient medicine, this discovery also explained the mysterious end of her reign. As her health declined, she might have grown too weak to rule directly and relied more on priests and advisors. When she eventually died, her stepson and co-ruler Thutmose III took full control of Egypt. His later efforts to erase her name, destroy her statues, and take credit for her monuments might not have been driven by hatred, but by a desire to restore traditional male rule. Her illness and death gave him the perfect opportunity to reshape history through DNA and science. The mystery of Hatshepsut's disappearance finally became clear. She wasn't murdered or cursed. She was the victim of an accidental chemical poisoning. Her life ended not through treachery, but through the quiet tragedy of her own trust in ancient remedies. It was a reminder that even a woman who ruled like a god was still human and vulnerable. For many generations, Queen Hatshepsut's story had been misunderstood. Historians once saw her as a power-hungry woman who stole the throne from her young stepson. Her masculine image, the false beard, royal kilt, and title of His Majesty made her seem like she was pretending to be something she wasn't. But modern discoveries have changed that view entirely. Today, she is seen not as a usurper, but as a visionary leader who redefined what it meant to rule. Her DNA confirmed her true identity, and new archaeological findings revealed the purpose behind her choices. Hatshepsut didn't disguise her gender because she was ashamed of it. She did it to strengthen her claim to the throne and unite her people. In Egyptian belief, the pharaoh was a divine being, a living god. Power was deeply symbolic, and the role had always been portrayed as male. Hatshepsut understood that to rule effectively, she had to adapt to that image. Her decision to combine both male and female traits in her depictions wasn't deception, it was wisdom. She became the embodiment of balance, blending strength and grace, authority and compassion. Modern excavations at her temple in Deir el-Bahari have shown how deliberate this image was. The temple's reliefs show her in both male and female forms, sometimes wearing a dress, other times the royal kilt and crown. This dual portrayal reflected her belief that she was chosen by the god Amen himself to maintain harmony between heaven and earth. The design of her temple, with its perfect symmetry and terraces aligned with the sun, also expressed this idea of balance between male and female, mortal and divine. Hatshepsut's reign was marked not by wars, but by peace, trade, and creation. She expanded Egypt's wealth through trading missions, most famously to the mysterious land of Punt, which brought back exotic goods, animals, and incense. She built temples, monuments, and statues that celebrated prosperity and divine order. Her rule became one of Egypt's most successful and stable periods. Today, her rediscovered mummy and the scientific analysis that followed have given historians a new appreciation for her legacy. She was not a woman pretending to be a man, nor a queen who stole power. She was a ruler who reimagined what kingship could be. In a time when women were expected to stay in the background, she stood in the spotlight and proved that wisdom and leadership had no gender. Her story, once buried by time and rewritten by others, has now been restored through the power of science. From the sands of Egypt to the laboratories of the modern world, Hatshepsut's name has risen again. She reminds us that true greatness is not defined by how long one rules, but by the courage to change what has always been. Her rediscovery not only solved an ancient mystery, but also restored one of history's most extraordinary women to her rightful place among the immortal pharaohs of Egypt.